What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Shocker Racing Garage. My name is James and I'm back here with the Mojito Jeep Wrangler 392. And today I am super excited to be finally ditching this giant eyesore of a muffler that Jeep put on the Wrangler 392s. Now, Jeep did a pretty darn good job making the stock exhaust sound good. And the fact that they gave us the performance exhaust mode right out of the box with just the push button so you can open and close the valves and make it louder or quieter is key. That was huge, but this whole system could be improved upon. Now, my number one complaint with this whole exhaust system is how far it hangs down, and it's basically asking to be destroyed as soon as you go off-roading and hit the trails. You know you're gonna smash these tips up, and like I said, just this big thing hanging down here. And besides that, it's just an eyesore. I think it looks terrible from behind when you're driving. So, you know, you've got the option of adding a skid plate, or I know some people have gone and, you know, painted it with some high heat paint, which was on my list of things to do just to make it not stand out so much. But this is where our friends over at AWE Tuning have come in key. All right, so I have already gone ahead and unboxed everything and kind of laid the parts out in the way that they're gonna go. This is one thing that I always like to do just to make sure that I have all of the pieces before I get started on an exhaust swap. So starting from the front of the vehicle, I've laid out the pipes going backwards. You've got kind of like an H pipe here that's gonna be coming right off the cats into some resonators. You've got a driver side and a passenger side resonator that are gonna go back up over the axle. And you've got the bend there and straight into these pipes that have the valved system that's going to continue to allow you to be able to open and close your exhaust valves or channel the exhaust through the actual muffler and then out these exhaust tips. So basically these valved kind of Y pipes are going to allow you to use the vacuum and the factory button that came from the performance exhaust, which will open and close and allow the air to either free flow straight out or get rerouted in through the muffler. So you're basically gonna have the option of just resonated straight out or resonated and into the AWE Switchpath muffler system. Now, one of the things that AWE has designed in the recent years is what they're calling their bash guard exhaust tips. And what it does is it reinforces the tips on the exhaust system. So when you do go off-roading, it's not gonna be able to crush or be smashed super easy. All right, so I'm gonna give you a few little revs, kind of a startup and some revs with the exhaust open and closed on the stock system. Okay, so what we wanted to do is we wanted to measure the height to the bottom of the tips just to see if we're gonna gain any ground clearance with this exhaust system. And it looks like we are, what, about 20 and 5/8?
Yep, exactly.
Yep, about 20 and 5/8 to the bottom of the exhaust tips on the stock exhaust. And let's go to the bottom of the muffler here, Greg. On the exhaust system, the actual muffler.
Exact same, 20 and 5/8.
About 20 and 5/8. So Jeep probably did that to make sure that the exhaust was, you know, about the same along the bottom there. But we're gonna see if we gain any ground clearance with this new AWE exhaust system. So we'll jump right into it. So I'm gonna basically just be starting to remove the stock exhaust from the back, working our way forward there. And it all begins by disconnecting these vacuum lines to the stock valves. Those should just pull straight off, which it did, nice and easy. We got one on each side. And then from there, we're gonna start working on removing the exhaust hanger clamps up in here on both sides, giving us access to dropping the muffler here. So it's a tight fit up in here. We couldn't get a ratchet or anything up in here to loosen these exhaust hangers in the back by the muffler. So what seems to work best is a set of ratcheting wrenches, and this was a 1/2 inch, so that worked really well. I got it broken loose, and now I can go ahead and do it by hand. So on these hangers, there's one bolt that goes this way into the frame, and then there's also one that goes straight towards the back of the vehicle, and they're both 1/2 inch. Next up, we just got to undo these 2 bolts here that hold the muffler to the exhaust pipes, and then we'll be able to drop this whole muffler down and out. Okay, we're out here. Wow, that thing is heavy. So this is how big the stock muffler and valve system is, and we're going to be going to that guy. So big difference. I'm sure it weighs a lot less. Okay, so now that we've got the muffler gone from the back, we've basically got this one big long pipe with another resonator or muffler here and a couple clamps, and then it bolts up here. So we're going to remove these clamps that hold it up in place right here, and then we'll undo these bolts and we'll drop this pipe out of the way. Okay, so we got the full exhaust system off and kind of got them laid out side by side, so you can kind of see it was more of an X pipe on the stock, whereas that's an H pipe into the new resonators, whereas this kind of had this muffler resonator thing that's all one. And then you're going to go up and over the axle and into the pipes that go into the muffler and the valves. Pretty simple. I just think you're going to get a lot more weight savings out of that, and hopefully some better sound and more clearance. The one tool that's kind of a specialty tool that you may not everybody might not have laying around is the exhaust hanger tool, and I highly recommend picking one of these up. It made it super easy to get these clamps off the stock exhaust, and then it'll make it easier for us to move them over to the new exhaust system. So next, they want you to remove the factory breather tube from the rear diff. It's just kind of pressed onto some barb fittings here. They want you to pull these off, and it looks like they want you to move it over to this barb fitting here, probably to give more clearance for the heat and everything. I have figured out that using one of these like clip removal tools seems to work the best for getting up in there and being able to pry it down. So I already got that one loose, but this one here. Okay, so I made it the one, there's 2 barb fittings. I put it towards the one towards the very end, because otherwise when I went to the other one, it seemed like it was hanging in there, and I didn't want it flopping around or anything. Plus this will also give me more slack when the rear axle flexes. So I ended up hooking it up on the very end one. And I'm going to take a zip tie and zip tie the breather tube to the brake line here. Okay, so they give you these 2 barb fittings. These are going to go right up into the vacuum lines that we took down off the stock exhaust system. And then that's going to allow us to be able to, hook them up to the AWE exhaust. Okay, so this is the vacuum line on the driver's side. So I'm just going to take one of these barb fittings and just kind of push it into the end there. All right, and we're going to do the same thing on the passenger side. Okay, so looking for the heat shield in the back of the Jeep, look for the sway bar, and on the passenger side here, right by the plastic tub, you can actually see the tub is exposed there a little bit. That's a little storage tub in the trunk of the Jeep. You want to remove this one nut here, which I believe is an 11, and that's going to give us access to pull this down to be able to put the new provided heat shielding up in the Jeep. Okay, so AWE's instructions are basically, they come with this piece of heat shielding that is going to get mounted up. It's going to get stuck on up underneath there to provide extra heat shielding. And it gives you a bunch of measurements on where to cut, and you're basically going to cut this into 2 pieces, an A and a B. And we use a dry erase marker to kind of mark our marks here, and we'll start making some cuts. So this is going to be piece A, this will be piece B. Okay, so with this heat shielding, we were having a little trouble figuring this all out, but looks like we're going to take this piece A, and you're really worried about protecting this exposed corner here. And basically it's going to get doubled up. So You're gonna wrap this piece A around like that, so that you're giving this corner some protection. So with piece A already up in there, we're gonna take piece B and we're gonna go, the short side is gonna go kind of across the back of the vehicle. And you want to make sure there's some fins at the top there. You don't want to go that high. So you can see how Greg is wrapping it up in there. And these fins up there, you want to be just below those. And then now that he's done this side, you can peel the backing. He's going to peel the back on the other half. It's going to go kind of parallel with the length of the vehicle. Okay, so you can get a little better view of how Greg wrapped this here, but basically you're protecting all the exposed plastic and just putting this heat shielding in around this corner. You doubled up there, you got the A up below the B, and again, just make sure that you don't cover up those fins at the top. That's kind of like your starting point for working your way down here. And then I can go ahead and put the bolt back in here. I did remove a second one here just to give us some more room to work, or a little more flexibility here. So I'll put both those nuts back on, and then I think we're ready to start installing some exhaust. Okay, so we're taking the H pipe here, and we gotta slide this over. Okay, so we found that you gotta kind of start these two pipes a little bit, and then you're gonna wanna get this mount on here. Should have put some lube on there. So on the pipe that goes to the H pipe, there is a pin right here, and you want to make sure that you bottom out, like bury the H pipe until you hit that pin, and then we'll loosely tighten the clamps down now that we've got it in the mount here. Okay, so next after the H pipe is the driver side resonator pipe. Basically we slid that over the outer pipe. And make sure you start one of the clamps on here so it's ready to go. And then you're gonna put the hanger back in and on the hanger bar and start the bolts. So we got that in there kind of loosely started. And you'll notice that this resonator has some plastic on it. We left that on just until we get this whole thing bolted up because we don't want to get it scratched up or anything, at least not yet. And yeah, so we can snug up this one here and those back there. All right, so now we added the second passenger side resonator and the clamp. Got it going up over the axle there. There'll be some adjustment because obviously it's hitting on the line there. And gotta just work on the back section now. Okay, so we already put the pipe in that comes across here from basically from the driver's side, comes across to the passenger side and back. We got that set on there, and now Greg is working on assembling the muffler section with the tips. All right, so when you're assembling this, you want the muffler with the flat side up, and the AWE badge is going to be towards the rear of the vehicle. So your tips are coming out here, the badge should be right there. Greg's assembling the other tip here. And trying to get that on, and then we'll be adding the valve sections on. The kind of shorter one is going to be your passenger side, the longer piece is the driver side, and then we'll get this thing ready to be hung. So now we're just trying to get this whole rear section up and on. This just takes a lot of finagling and trying to get the two pieces in and whatever, but we do have it up in here, and we can go ahead and start trying to snug down now. Try to get this clamp in place. And then I'm gonna tighten this one down. All right, so now that this is all kind of lightly snugged in here, we're gonna go ahead and mount these rear hangers that we took down the factory hangers and get it kind of set in place. Okay, so it took us a little bit of time, but we got the rear muffler exhaust hanger bolts bolted up, and they give you a lock retainer so that the pipe can't slide off the mount. So we locked that on there. It's just a little Allen screw, and we did reconnect a vacuum line to the new valves up in there. So it's all kind of hard to show because it's all tucked up in there, but they give you the vacuum line extension to go to the valves. And then let me jump out here so we can show you the tips. So then once we got everything tightened up and snugged, we were able to, you know, kind of align the tips, and we tried to get them all pretty well level and flat underneath here, so that it looks cool from behind and will give the best clearance. And once you're all done with that, you want to make sure you snug down all your bolts going, you know, front to back. Make sure everything's nice and tight, and then put some miles on it, and you'll want to come back and recheck everything after a short amount of time of driving, just to make sure everything's kind of tightened down. All right, let's go ahead and hit the remote start and fire it up. Okay, so we wanted to get an after measurement to determine how much ground clearance we actually gained. I don't remember what the stock was. I know we've got it on camera, so I'll have to refer back to that. But right now, looks like we're at about 23 1/4 to the bottom of the tips, and about 23 1/4 to the mufflers. Okay, so I brought the 392 over here to my dad's shop just so that I could get it up on a 2-post lift and show you guys underneath a little better how this whole system looks, and kind of do a little better walkthrough than I could when we were on the ground doing the install. There's also a couple things that I wanted to point out. Really the hardest things for this whole install were just getting these tips aligned properly, and really there's not a whole lot of play on the 2 outer tips because those are attached to the valves, but these 2 inners, the 2 inner ones have a lot of play up and down, and just wanted to get them nice and level across as best as I could. So it took a little time and a few attempts to get them straight, but going through back towards the front of the vehicle, I also had to install this heat shielding that you remove from the, let's see if you can come around here, Greg, from the factory exhaust system. You take this off and you got to use these new clamps. Now, I don't quite have the right tool to tighten this down, but I'm going to try a little better now that it's up in the air and not laying on the ground, to try and pull these tight, and then you can either fold them back or cut them off. So I'm going to tighten those up today. Wanted to do a little better walkthrough. You can see the exhaust system coming from the cat's back is really just a beautifully designed system. Looks almost too pretty to be on a Jeep underneath here, but yeah, we clamped it down up front here and just worked our way back. Super simple, and it looks beautiful. That just went up in smoke like super easy. That line lock mode is insane, and I probably just wasted like half an inch of tire on the brand new Mickey Thompsons, but look at the smoke, and hopefully that got you some good views of the exhaust, good sounds, because that thing is insane, both open and closed. So to wrap things up here with this AWE Switchpath exhaust for the Wrangler 392, I wanted to say that AWE really designed my perfect exhaust system that I had in mind for what I would have wanted for the Wrangler 392. I wanted it to still use the stock valve button to be able to open and close the exhaust. Obviously, I wanted it to have the valves. I wanted to gain ground clearance so that I'm not smashing tips or smashing the exhaust system when off-roading, but I wanted it to still look good from behind as well. They really have nailed it. I mean, it's bolt-on kit, stock exhaust valve button usage, super high ground clearance. I don't believe anybody has ground clearance as good as this AWE kit from any of the systems that have come out yet, and it still looks good. I mean, you can still see those bash guard tips from behind. You know, so you know there's some tips there, and you know there's an exhaust change, but they're not hanging down. They're not going to be smashed on the rocks just as, you know, super easy like a normal exhaust tip system. Definitely check this system out. If you have questions, reach out to me or reach out to AWE. They have been awesome with their customer service, so you're definitely going to want to look into this system. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you do need any other video clips, I'll be posting some teasers and stuff over on Instagram. And make sure you give us a big thumbs up, comment below, and subscribe to our channel. This channel keeps continuing to grow because of you guys, and we always appreciate it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.